Welcome back, and it's my pleasure now to bring on Louis Davis Jr. And Melissa Alexander. How are you all this afternoon?
Doing well. First. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me here.
My pleasure, my pleasure. And Louis, how are you?
I'm well and happy to be here and happy to be back here with both of you who I get to do a lot of work with this year and many years, but especially this year. We've been real busy and with Board of Elections busy since 2020.
I've been saying we've been riding, I won't use the other phrase because it's just too volatile right now, but riding side by side for a little bit this year, especially the last couple of months, when we've been preparing and working together for the DC primary and the elections that are coming up in June. Louis, we just saw a piece on AARP. You want to talk about, just why AARP finds it so important to engage in elections, particularly AARP DC and the local DC elections?
Sure. Just like I was taught years ago and working in public policy in Chicago, New York, DC, budgets are priorities in numbers. Budgets, city budgets, state budgets, federal budgets are priorities set in numbers. And elections are about putting into office representatives who get to create these budgets in cities, states, and the federal government. And they're doing so based on a set of priorities. And people 50 plus are our nation's most powerful voters. And they have an opportunity to inform their elected officials or those aspiring to be their elected officials about what they, meaning the person who's 50 plus, at their kitchen table, in their neighborhood, their community, their city, see as their priorities. So they're not only the most important and powerful voter in the country because they vote reliably. And this is a chance to make sure their voices are heard. And AARP is doing that with the DC Board of Elections here and around the country to help make sure that people 50 plus know where and how to vote safely.
And we'll delve a little bit more deeper into the issues. But I know that it was important for AARPDC to ensure that the candidates talked to that segment of the population. That doesn't always happen. And so can you talk a little bit about, why that's important?
Well, what we did with you, with the Washington Informer, and we're proud to have done so, is to host candidate forums that we'll talk about more later. And it's a way that AARP has always done its job in helping make sure that voters are informed. We're nonpartisan. We don't tell people who to vote for, but what we do is help to put in front of them reliable, timely, objective information with which they can then go into the voting booth. And that sounds so old school, right? Because now it's not just the voting booth, it's mail-in ballot.
Vote box.
Yeah, it's all kinds of booths.
Right.
But we help them to be informed about who they want to vote for, however, which way they decide to do it. And that's our job. Our job is we do the hard research. We have the data. We have the millions of members who we poll every year. So we have a good sense of what people 50 plus and their families care most about.
We'll talk a little bit more too about the voter guide that we produced this week, but because you mentioned voter booth, voter box, this is a good time to bring Melissa in to talk about all the new initiatives that have allowed people to vote in different ways in the District of Columbia, and what the Board of Elections has in store for the June 21st primary. Information folks need to know. So welcome, Melissa.
Thank you. Thank you again for inviting me here. So the primary election is coming up. And for everyone, it is Tuesday, June 21st. But as we like to say at the board, that is the very last day for anyone in the district to cast your ballot. So because we are still in a pandemic setting, this is our second election cycle during the pandemic, we have decided to and have found funding to send everyone their ballot through the mail. And so especially for residents that are 50 plus, this may be the safest way for you to participate in the election cycle. So if you belong to any of the four major political parties, which is the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, DC Statehood Green, or the Libertarian Party, you should have received your ballot in the mail. So if you're a registered voter and you belong to any of those four major political parties, you should have received your ballot in the mail. If you are no party or independent, we don't have a ballot to send to you. And that's because DC has a closed primary system. You have to vote along your party lines. Okay. So if you have not received your ballot and you belong to one of those four political parties, I encourage you to take down this number. It's 202-727-2525. Again, 202-727-2525. Give us a call so that we can track your ballot. So the ballots were sent out. They were mailed out after May 16th. They were sent out in batches. So you should have received your ballot by now. So again, if you have not received your ballot, give us a call, 202-727-2525, so that we can reissue your ballot. Since ballots are being sent to people's homes, a lot of things can happen to your ballots. If you haven't received your ballot yet, again, give us a call. If your dog ate your ballot, or if you were not aware that your ballot was going to be sent to you and you recycled it, we can reissue your ballot to you. So again, give us a call and let us know, what the issue is. If you voted incorrectly, or you changed your mind, we can send you a new ballot in the mail. We can rectify all of those issues. So we want to make sure that go ahead.
No, I did want to ask that question because that raises a question for me. You said if you, how's the Board of Elections making sure that there is no fraud takes place? And because you mentioned the fact that if you changed your mind, so are you saying if you voted, submitted your ballot, and then you changed your mind? Is that what you're saying? Okay.
No. So if you have filled in your ballot and you incorrectly filled in someone's name, sometimes the name and the bubble might be misaligned, and you say, I didn't mean to do that. I changed my mind, or, I made a mistake. That probably would be better language. You made a mistake. We can send you a new ballot. So the thing is, every ballot has a tracking number on there. So when you send it back to us, it's coded, it's processed. So we know that your ballot has been cast. So
and it's final. It's final.
It's final. Right. And so that brings up another issue about people going into the vote centers. So early voting is going to begin next Friday. It begins on June 10th. And so last election cycle, we had people that they used their mail-in ballot, but they weren't certain that their ballot was going to count. And so they went into the vote centers and they just wanted to make sure that their vote was going to count. But once your ballot has been sent in and it has been processed, the system will flag you as having already voted. You can still cast a ballot. You will have to cast a special ballot. But on our back end, we make sure that when you sign that ballot, we check and cure what's called curing the signature. So to make sure that it is you who voted your ballot and not anyone else.
And Louis, jump in if you have any questions, but I know I also wanted to talk about, since we have ARP on, and this is not to cast all seniors as people who, are unable to vote, right? But yes. How is the Board of Elections, what special, besides the mail-in ballot, what special procedures do you have for people who are either may have disabilities or physical challenges, or that are seniors? What is the Board of Elections doing to assist them with their ability to vote?
Sure. So we do have special ballots, or not special ballots, but a way for people to vote at home. The mail-in ballot solves a lot of those issues. So since again, we're in a pandemic, everyone has automatically been sent their ballot. In a regular election cycle, you would have to request a mail-in ballot, but a lot of those issues have been foregone because we've just automatically sent everyone on our voter roll the ballot, right? There is a program that the DC Board of Elections has, which is called a Ward Coordinator Program. Not a lot of people know about it, but we do reach out to all of the nursing homes, the convalescent centers, and we coordinate with them to ensure that the residents are registered in a timely manner. And usually during a regular election cycle, we would go back with the ballots and help them vote. But because we are in a pandemic, we are not able to do that, but they are being sent their ballot automatically in the mail. So as long as they have, an aide or a nurse to help them, they can vote that ballot and send it back to us.
And I understand there are drop boxes located around the city. Can you give us some idea about where they're located? Or I know you can't give us the whole list, but
Yeah.
and I wish we had a photograph of one now. We should have put one up to make sure that people are putting them either in a mailbox or the drop box. But the drop box itself, talk about those.
Sure. So there are 55 drop boxes located across the city in each of the wards. There are more drop boxes in Ward 7 and 8 to make it more convenient for those residents to be able to return their ballots to us. The mail ballot drop boxes were open last Friday, and they will stay open 24/7 until June 21st, and they'll close at 8 p.m. So you have between now and until June 21st at 8 p.m. to place your ballot into the drop boxes. And by the way, the ballot drop boxes were the most popular way for residents to return their mail-in ballots the last election cycle. So we were glad for that, and we're hoping that the city continues to embrace using the drop boxes throughout the city. I also want to point out something that I think is key and important. In some of the locations, the mail-in ballot drop boxes are located next to the COVID drop boxes. And just because of procurement, there was only one manufacturer that could provide the city with the ballot drop boxes. So they're the same exact size and shape. So everyone, please be careful about when you return your ballot to make sure you drop it into the correct ballot drop box. But we have worked out with the Department of Health, if anyone should accidentally drop their COVID test into the mail-in drop box, we will return those to the Department of Health. And if anyone drops their ballot into the COVID drop box, they will deliver their ballots to the board.
One had a nightmare. I thought it was a nightmare when they woke up the next morning and said, "Oh my goodness, the boxes are right next to each other. The slots are the same." And it sounds as though you may have had some experiences with that already. So it's good to get that word out.
Yes, so we anticipated what some of the issues would be, so we try to mitigate as much of that, in advance. So we and we recognize, once those, from last election, what some of the issues would be. So we worked in advance to try to again mitigate some of those issues.
It's a reminder, isn't it, that reading is still fundamental.
Yeah.
It seems as though with the process that we have now, Melissa, that absentee voting really is kind of unnecessary now. Is that the case, or can people still submit an absentee ballot, and for what reason would they need to do that?
Well, it's for convenience. And so the absentee and the mail-in ballot provides the convenience for individuals to vote from home. And so if someone does have a disability, it relieves them from having to depend on someone else. And then also, you can also give your ballot to your mail carrier. So, that's another way that you can return your ballot to us. And some people still, have that personal relationship with their mail carrier, which is excellent. But there's so many different ways to return the ballots to the board. Also, during early voting, there's 40 vote centers that are going to be open throughout the city, and you can return the ballot to the vote centers. On election day, there's going to be 90 vote centers open across the district. And for whatever reason, if someone waits until, Tuesday, June 21st to return their ballot, they have until 8 p.m. to return the ballot to a vote center if they want to do it that way.
So it sounds like I'm the one that's confused, because your mail-in ballot really is the absentee ballot. Is that?
It is, yes.
It's synonymous.
It is one
all
and
right.
the same, yes.
Great. Okay. All right. I'm glad we cleared that up. And then if you happen, I'm one of those, people that just likes to vote on election day. I just like the whole process, right? Until I can't do that anymore. But with the mail-in process, will people that go in on that day have to show some proof? I mean, their ID card or something? What do you do when you go in on election day and you want to vote, at a poll?
Right. So it'll be the same process. And so we're providing, different options for people, because there are those individuals that will wait until June 21st. We're hoping that they don't, but, because of tradition, they want to vote on election day. So for anyone that still wants to go into a polling location, when you go into the vote centers, we don't ask for ID. So it does make it a lot faster and quicker if you have your ID, because we scan the back of it. But as long as you provide the correct information, DC has, some of the more liberal voting laws. So we make it easy and convenient for people to be able to cast their vote. So it would be the same process as it was any other time you go into a vote center.
And I guess my last question, because I have a bunch, but I want to get Louis back in here too, and I want to talk a little more about AARP. But this midterm kind of we have a mayoral election. We have some pretty key positions that folks are running for in this primary, but it's not a presidential year. And I know that there have been times when the Board of Elections may have needed more volunteers than it had to work in those polls. So how are you all looking for people who, for staffing the polls? And are you still looking for people to volunteer?
So we are pretty much set for the primary election, but there is also the general election that is coming up in November. So we recruit on a rolling basis. So if there's anyone out there that would like to participate as an election worker, we would welcome you to apply. So you can go to our website, www.dcboe.org. And then at the top, you're going to look for election worker, and then the election worker application is going to pop up. So you can go ahead and fill that out. Training for the November election begins in August. So we'll contact you over the summertime. You do have to do a 4-hour training in order to work the election, and there is a small stipend. So it's about $250 to work on election day. And then also for any DC government employee that may not live in the district, if you live in Maryland or Virginia, the residency requirement is waived. So we welcome, anyone in the district that wants to support the democratic system, or, to help continue democracy. Please consider volunteering and working the elections. I think it is a great way to show support and to continue to help everyone to, participate in civic duty.
All right, wonderful. Well, I want to thank you, Melissa, for being with us and for sharing all of this great information. Is there anything that you really need to let folks know that maybe I didn't ask or we hadn't gotten in? I just want to make sure we get that out first.
Yes, no. And so we're encouraging everyone, no matter how you decide to vote for this election cycle, just do it sooner rather than later. So we don't want everyone waiting until the last minute.
Okay, I hear you. So
Yes,
maybe I will go on and submit that mail-in ballot. You all put the postage on there, so I may as well get it on back in, right?
yes.
All right, all right. Thanks so much for with us. And we'll go back to Lewis Davis now. Melissa, we really appreciate that. And Lewis, you there?
I sure am.
Wonderful. Good, good, good. So I mean, I thought that was, great information. I think folks have gotten it, and they also did a Board of Elections, or I think did their mail-in with the sample ballots. She didn't mention that, but those have been circulated as well. But let's talk a little bit about, what we've been working on, and particularly some of the issues or the questions that we asked during our two forums. There was a mayoral forum as well as at large forum. You want to talk about how that went and who was there?
Sure. You have to help me on the second one, make sure I don't forget somebody. Uh,
Well,
but
the mayoral part of the
yeah, but no, for our viewers, um, first, if you missed the forums, you can still see them in their entirety at the Washington Informer and AARP DC's Facebook pages. So I invite you to go to either of our Facebook pages, and there you can see exactly how it occurred. Our at-large candidate forum on May 4th, and the mayoral candidate forum on May 17th. I think I got those dates right. So there's that. And then inside the Washington Informer, as was mentioned earlier, there's a voter guide, and it's in the print paper that's probably in your mailbox right now, and/or you can go online at their website to see the voter guide. In that voter guide, you'll see a bunch of questions put to all the candidates for office, but you'll see questions too that came from AARP and came from what we hear from our members and others about not all the issues they care about, but some of the issues they care about. And those are the questions we put to the candidates. And Denise,
You want to talk about what those questions were, though, Lewis? Mm-hmm.
Sure. Broadband connectivity. We asked the candidates for their policies and strategies, were they to be elected, that they would implement to help ensure that every DC resident had access to affordable broadband in their home. We have broadband connectivity at our public libraries, and we have some of the best public libraries in the country, and that's all fine and good. But ARP is advocating that every home, apartment, condo, fee simple house, wherever someone lives, 50 and older, should have in that home affordable broadband connectivity. And it's not, as I think we know by now, particularly since the pandemic, that's not just about watching Netflix and gaming, having the grandson over the game. It's about having access to all variety of services and programs and resources that anyone deserves to have. Broadband connectivity is the telephone today that the telephone was a couple hundred years ago. Sorry, however long the telephone's been around. We get my drift. So broadband connectivity. The other was healthcare access to affordable healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
We are in the richest country still on the planet, and it's 2022, and still not everyone has equitable access to affordable, timely healthcare, particularly, and by timely, I mean preventative healthcare. And there are some gross inequities here in the District of Columbia. We do well with health insurance coverage. I think we're up somewhere around 97, 98% of DC residents have some type of healthcare insurance. We had an Affordable Health Care Act before there was the ACA. We were doing pretty well with helping people get insured. But even having insurance doesn't always mean that people are having the same, or not the same, but equitable access to healthcare so that they can have a better chance at longevity here in the district. So there are some wide sweeping gaps in living well and longevity, particularly among African Americans and their white counterparts here in the District of Columbia. So we asked candidates about that. Another one has to do with health as well.
And food insecurity, was that it?
Yeah, food insecurity. Yeah. And this one was focusing on primarily senior food insecurity. And that's because a number of studies suggest that about 13% of seniors here in the District of Columbia and these are, we're counting here at person 60 and older, are going without a meal somewhere during the week. And that could be, even if they're in good health, and most, as you said earlier, most people, most seniors are not needing anything, and most seniors are in good health. So it's important to state. Here we're talking, though, about those who can't afford physically, mentally, socially, emotionally to miss a meal. They may need it to take medicines. They may need it to just keep up their good weight and their general health. And so they shouldn't be going without a meal. And one of the best doing, I'm making up some phrase there. We do pretty well here in DC. Cities in one of the best doing countries on the planet in terms of economics. And then we put one question to the mayoral candidates that we didn't to the at-large, but I'll stop there. We'll get to that question if you want.
Yeah, one of the things that I thought was a consistent theme as it related to seniors was how they were impacted by COVID. And even when they're not, just the fact that a lot of them are isolated. And so that's why there was this importance to support broadband, the issue of food insecurity, access to healthcare for seniors who were indoors pretty much for 2 years. And so there seemed to be a consistent response acknowledging that among the candidates. I don't know if there's anything that you recall in those responses that stood out.
That I don't recall everything, and I'll trip up if I try to make like I do. And so that's why we have it available for your viewers. They can go read it verbatim in the voter guide. And there you can see the responses that all four of the at-large candidates gave to these questions, and our mayoral candidates gave as well. So to get the numbers right there, we had in the at-large forum, we had sitting council member, at-large councilmember Anita Bonds, we had Mr. Nate Fleming, we had Lisa Gore, and Dexter Williams. Those were all the candidates at the at-large forum. Hey, I got that. And so you can see their responses there. But no, you're right. Everyone responded as they should as a candidate, right? Saying that it's important. But I want to pull on the thread you mentioned about the social connectivity. As I mentioned, broadband is about more than watching Netflix or HBO Max, but it helped people stay connected. I mean, as good as our DC Department of Aging and Community Living is, or ever could be, most people age 60, and for the District of Columbia, they count seniors at 60 and older, and that's that's the eligible age level for DACL. Most people 60 and older, particularly 50 and older, they don't even know what a DC wellness center is, because as good as they are, they don't go to that wellness center. They're just living life large, as large as they can. But when the pandemic hit, whatever kind of social fabric they had built for themselves or woven for themselves, it got a little tattered. And so they had to go virtual. And so they find themselves all of a sudden needing broadband, high-speed connectivity is another word for broadband, inside their home or their apartment. It was coming up short. You need a certain upload and download speed in order to watch certain videos and stream certain events, giving you reliable information. Have a telemedicine meeting with your doctor requires reliable Wi-Fi.
Louis, one of the things that you have stressed, and I just want to get your feedback on this because, and I won't mention the candidate, but I'll just say that this candidate sort of echoed what you're saying, that a lot of the seniors in the district are still pretty vibrant and, they pretty much can support themselves and they're not invalids and all of that. But there seem to be, with AARP DC, you see it, them, you work with these seniors. And so how is it, or why is it that more candidates than not begin to think of older people as old people, if you know what I'm saying? And so their response is really sort of connected in that way. How does AARP handle that?
I'll tell you, it's it's how our CEO, our current CEO, Joanne Jenkins, began nearly 6 years ago, changing the conversation here across America and arguably to many outer parts of the world by disrupting aging. Just changing the notion about what it means to age is what our CEO set out to do and has been doing for her tenure. And it is helping people to understand, I'm a day older than I was yesterday. I am, however, age and the mileage I have on my body depends on how well I've maintained it, just like my car, and I need to rotate the tires every now and then on my car. I need to change the oil. I need to keep it clean, put good fuel into it, try not to drive it recklessly. Our bodies are much the same way. So whether I was 35 or 75, I had better have done that. If I was 75, I wish I had taken better care of my car when I was 35. And if I'm 35, I should be planning to be able to drive this car when I'm 75, because unlike our cars, this is the only body we get. It's one rehearsal and you're done. So we're trying to, at ARP, and we are changing the conversation of what it means to live and live well at any age. But you're absolutely right. There are people, most here, thriving, and they just need what they need. Sometimes just for people to get out of their way, to enjoy life here in the District of Columbia and around the nation. So people need to live well at any age.
And so when you talk about responses to some of the questions, and people may say something like, we need more of, I can't think of any right at the moment. Nothing's coming straight to mind, but was there anything you left as the director of AARPDC? Was there anything you walked away from these forums or the voters guide saying, I really wish someone had touched on this, or this is an area we need to work on more as it relates to what you're hearing seniors in DC want and need, since, you're one of the strongest advocates for seniors or I shouldn't even say that, for people 50 plus. I guess we're all seniors, but for people 50 plus or headed there, that, you didn't hear from the candidates.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that you're probably not hearing, and your viewers probably have not heard in any other candidate forum, because as good as ours were with the Washington Informer, we understand we're not the only kids on the block. There are countless other forums going on. You probably heard nobody asking about the one question we put to the candidates about the Older Americans Act, for example. Very particular to the District of Columbia is not the Older Americans Act. It impacts the entire country. But what is the question we put in there about the Department of Community, Aging, and Living doing what it has to do by edict inside the Older Americans Act. There's a new provision requiring of the district to collect data on LGBTQ plus older persons, and semicolon, or I should put period, and any persons, of any age, living with HIV in the District of Columbia. I bet you didn't hear that question put to the candidates in any other candidate forum. And so you should go to the Washington Informer to see how they responded to that. Again, the Older Americans Act is requiring of the district and every state to collect data. You can't know what's going on with any kind of community unless you have data. There's that one, Denise. And then we also address family medical care and leave for family caregivers. Something, ARP fights for perennially is that every person who works should not have fear of losing their income because they have to care for a sick spouse, a sick child, their own health, the health of a mother who just gave birth to a baby. So that's important as well. And you probably did not hear the candidates have to answer those questions in any other candidate forum. So I'm proud of what we did with the Washington Informer in our two forums, May 4th and 17th. And you should go and see how the candidates answer these questions on both ARP's Facebook page and the Washington Informer's Facebook page.
I appreciate that. And, your ear is more fine-tuned to issues that impact people who are 50 plus in DC, and we're really excited, one, to have had the opportunity to work with you on both of these forums and the voters guide. It took a lot of work, but again, there's a segment of the community that sometimes is forgotten, despite the fact that they're, you know, all around us. And you know, and that I'm glad you mentioned that the forums are still available on both of our Facebook pages.
Mm-hmm.
So we definitely invite folks to see that. What's coming up for AARP?
Oh man, well, we're still going to be working with DC Board of Elections. We've been doing a number of events with them. That's why I applaud our community partner Melissa in the DC Board of Elections, who was just with us. In 2020, as she mentioned, when this was all weird, the world was really upside down that year. We did so many teletown halls and online on-screen events with them, helping people to get information about how to vote. We've been doing that this year as well, and we'll be doing more even on our social media before the 21st. And as she said, that's the last day to vote. So yeah, Denise, do not wait until the last day to vote. You know, it's not, you know, 40 years ago, it was the only day to vote. It is it's the last day to vote. So, you know, I get it. There's some nostalgia about walking into the elementary school or a voting center and voting. I get that, but plan carefully. That's another thing we did in 2020. We still plan your vote. So even if you do, like Denise, intend to go into the voting booth on the 21st physically, just plan ahead. Go online to www.dcboe.org and find out where the voting, where you can vote. I think Melissa didn't mention, but you can now vote anywhere in the city. So if you live in Ward 8, you can still vote in Ward 1 or vice versa.
I don't think you mentioned that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have what I called the other day, and we have a no excuse election going on here in DC. I mean, no excuse.
Right.
There are voters across the country, really, who would, I would say, they wouldn't give up their first child, but man, they're jealous. Let's put it that way. They're envious of the liberal ways, and I mean liberal in the freedom and the free ways we have to vote here. And there was no evidence of any sliver of fraud in 2020 here in the District of Columbia. And they just couldn't make it. The DC Board of Elections cannot make it any easier for people to vote. So it's really a no excuse election.
Right. Well, I want to thank you, Louis, for being with us. We are kind of gone over, but I think it's important to do that. And, you know, our door is always open for AARP DC and for you and for to continue conversations about people 50 plus in the District of Columbia. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Denise. And I would like nothing more than to keep working with the Informer as we help people 50 plus in the district live their best lives.
All righty. Thank you much and have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.